Hey everybody, it's Michael and welcome to a new series on my channel. This is the Unity How-To series where we're going to take a look at some specific things in Unity that we might want to accomplish and how do we accomplish them. So the very first one is going to be a problem that probably a lot of you that want to prototype something quickly have run into, and that is, especially if you're not like a Blender artist or 3D Studio Max user or whatever, you need to quickly get some level geometry into your scene so that you can start prototyping, which is exactly what I've done here for this little zombie simulation I've been working on. These guys here are just 15 by 15. We can see the grid lines if I zoom out because of the texture funkiness. These are just 15 by 15 places that I built in Minecraft, brought them in here, and I'm using them as prefab. So here I've got a whole bunch of prefabs, and I can just take these and drop them into a level either manually, or I could do a random scene generator or something like that. All right, so let's take a look at how to do that. I'm going to open a new scene in Unity and be right back. Okay, so this is a brand new project in Unity. Just created it, no big deal. Just got its camera, directional light, and a scene. There's nothing new about that. Let's look at, so first of all, you would obviously want to have Minecraft, but I suspect most gamers probably have Minecraft. And if you don't, you know what? It's 20 bucks or something, whatever the current price is. And if you decide that this is a useful tool for you, I mean, you can't find another modeling tool for 20 bucks, really. So, pretty good deal, really. Right now, I've just got to open a medieval village scene that I was building, but let's go and create a new world. So, create new world. Let's call this import test. And you're probably going to want to put it in creative mode unless you feel like doing something else. I'm going to put on the super flat variety here. You could certainly do it with terrain if you wanted to. I've got sheets on so that I can mess around with some things. I don't think we need it to generate structures. Let's say done with that. Create a new world. So here we go. And one thing I am going to do is, notice Mr. Slime over there. I don't want any creepers or anything messing with me, so I'm going to type slash and then difficulty peaceful, because we don't want slimes, and I certainly don't want creepers coming around. If you want to set the time of day, you could do that too, just make building easier. So let's build just a quick little thing over here. I'm just going to throw down a little bit of stone, just so we have something to look at. There we go. And maybe let's grab a different material too. Let's grab some of this hideous lime wool and put it just like that. Okay, there we go. So now we don't, I'm going to exit out of this and let's look at the tool that we would use to export. Now, so there are a lot of different tools that'll export from Minecraft. This one seemed to be the one that I found most useful. Mine-Waze is the tool. And you can download it over here. I'll put a link to it in the description, but it's realtimerendering.com/Eric, ERICH/Minecraft/public/Mine-Waze if you want to get it. And once you get it down and unzip it, here's what you got. We've got an application in here. There's lots of little things to explore in here. I'm not sure what all this does because I haven't used the tool that much. But if we open it up, we get a very simple little interface here that we don't see much going on. But if we do a file, open world, it's going to look in your default Minecraft directory. So if you're using like a mod pack or something like that, and you want to grab something from that, I think you'll have to retarget it. But for now, it's I'm using the default Minecraft for this, and here it is right there. So now we've imported our world, and we can zoom in on it, and you'll see that you're right there. Another thing about it too is if you are not at spawn, I think this sort of centers on spawn in Minecraft terms. So you're going to have to mark down your coordinates and navigate to that if you're not building at spawn. I'm right-clicking and dragging to select. So I've selected our little stone circle there with the stuff, and you'll notice that down here in the status bar shows our coordinates and also our Y coordinate and what block we're over. So when I roll over the stone, I'm over the stone. Roll over the wool, I'm over the wool. We can change this depth level, but let's just leave it and see what it gives us. I think what it's picking is the lowest visible block that's available, which is at level 3. So in theory, if we move this up to 4, we wouldn't get that grass. But let's try this. I'm going to go to File, And then we've got some options for exporting: 3D printing, Sketchfab, export a schematic. But the one we want here is export for rendering. And what that's going to give us the ability to save a wavefront object file, which is kind of an older file format. I wish it had something like Filmbox or Collada or something like that, but it doesn't, so that's fine. We'll call this test, and I'm just going to save it to a directory on my desktop. And you've got a lot of options here. Key options are that it is separating materials in blocks, I believe. Now, you could certainly do a lot of other things about this. You can have it like remove the hidden faces and all that, which is what it's default going to do. But if you want to do something different, like just have it export every single poly that's possible, you could do that, certainly. The default settings seem to work pretty well. And that's going to go into the directory we told it to go into. We get the wavefront file, we get the material, and we get a little image, which is just standard Minecraft textures. Now you'll probably notice that I was using a texture pack. It doesn't export from the texture pack. And you know, if you're going to actually use this, so what we're going to be importing is just some polygons shaped like cubes, right? Nobody owns a copyright on that, so you could actually use that in a shipping game if you wanted to. These textures here, though, are owned by Minecraft, obviously, or owned by Mojang, or now Microsoft, so you definitely don't want to use these in something you're going to ship. But you can redo the textures, and nobody's the wiser. Essentially, we've got a bunch of cubes that we're putting some textures on. So let's see how to get this into Unity. You open up Unity again, grab that directory, and I'm just going to grab all three of these items here and bring them into Unity. And what we're going to get is a bunch of stuff. So we've got our image file over here. We've got the actual model and all of its subcomponents, its meshes, and I don't know what these actually are. Are these prefabs? I mean, it's got a different symbol than an actual prefab, so I'm not entirely sure. This is supposed to be a material, but it's not actually, I don't think. But if we drag this into the world, there you go. It's got it, it's all textured. It doesn't look real great. How it's doing it is we have a separate little collection of over here, and each one of these has its own material. And this is given to us by the way the exporter happens. It's not necessarily the most convenient way to deal with it, and I'll show you guys quickly how we can deal with it. We can actually delete these materials here, and it's going to go pink as it's wont to do when you delete image from Unity. I'm going to create a new material, and I'm just going to create one material, and let's just call this MC Solid, because right now we're not doing any transparency. So I've created a new material, and I'm going to grab this image that got brought in, and I'm going to pop it into the albedo slot of this material. And I'm also going to turn down the smoothness on the metallic portion here. That'll get rid of that sort of washed out look that we were having before. So now we've got a new material. If we go up here and select these items, we can drag that onto there, and there you go. So it still looks a little fuzzy, right? Not very Minecraft-like, and that may be what you want, or you may want it to look Minecrafty. If you do want it to look Minecrafty, come back to your texture, and you can change some of these settings over here. For one of the things that we can change is filter mode. Instead of bilinear or trilinear, we can choose point. And now you're going to see that we get that sort of sharp, pixelated look that is Minecrafty. May or may not want that, but I'm just showing how to do it. We can also do some other things too. So we can modify this all we want. If we want to get rid of the dirt and the grass blocks, for instance, we can just select those and delete them. It'll tell you that it's going to break the prefab instance, but that may or may not be what you want to do. For certainly, if you get more ground than you really wanted, you can use it to delete that, or you could delete all of a particular kind of something out of your scene. So for now, let's delete that, and let's go take a look at how we would get something transparent out of Minecraft. So back in the game here, I'm going to press E and get up some stained glass. Let's pop that in there, and let's go into the regular bunch of stuff and grab maybe just a block of glass. And you know, let's go back into decorative over here, And let's grab a, I don't know, sapling is okay, I guess. Can pop down a sapling. So let's put a sapling down. Put a couple of those guys down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, not a Minecraft building tutorial, but we're just going to put down a little bit of shape here with some transparency so that we can play around with that a little bit. I am going to put like a roof on this guy maybe. If I can manage to do it. And having a nightmare recording today, all kinds of noises, but hopefully it's going to be clean for you guys. So there we go. We got a little thing built. It's we don't know what kind of thing it is, but we got it. And I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to make sure that we're, hopefully, yeah, there we go. Now we've reloaded the world. So you do have to reload the world. It doesn't automatically update. I'm going to grab to make sure I get those acacia saplings. And then I'm going to re-export it. So we're going to save or export for rendering. And let's call this test 2, just so there's new files there. And there we go. So if we look in our exports folder, we have now test 2. We also have some other files here. So instead of just test RGB, we have test2.alpha or -alpha, test2 RGB, and then test2 RGBA. Now these are sort of deceptively named. They're not going to get you, didn't want Minecraft. They're not going to get you exactly what you want, but let's see how we get to it. So let's drag in test 2. And that guy's going to come in without any of his stuff. So I'll drag in all of it. Well, we're probably going to change how we're doing stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this materials directory, because remember, that's where it's sort of storing all the materials that we probably don't need. And I'm also going to get rid of this original test and this original test RGB. Oh, actually, hang on. I'm not going to get rid of test RGB because we're using that for this Minecraft solid texture here. What we're going to do is we're going to make a new texture. I'm going to duplicate that with Control D. And let's call this Minecraft Transparent. Okay, we'll drag test 2 into the scene. It's going to be all purple, but we can select all of it and drag on our MC Solid texture. And it does about what you think it would do. We get solid, including these little billboards. Well, I guess they're not billboards, but these little sprites here that hold our acacia sapling. So how can we make this not like that? Well, we could try taking this material here and dragging it onto the sapling, stained glass, and stained glass pane. Let's try it. Now, we haven't done anything to this, so we're going to get the same effect. But now we can maybe modify this texture here. So if we were to go in and say, grab this test RGBA thing, right, and set alpha to transparent and set it up for point, and then go back to apply those edit settings, and then drag this into here in the albedo layer, you notice it doesn't make a change. So even though this actually does have some transparency, it doesn't seem to quite work. So I'm going to show you guys a trick, and I don't know if you have Photoshop or not, but it doesn't matter. You can use whatever image editor that you want that has the capability of producing transparency. So something with layers, right? You can't really do it with paint, right? So I'm going to drag in this test 2 RGB and the test 2 alpha. Now, so alpha is just putting white wherever, shades of gray actually, but white wherever it's fully solid, and black wherever it is fully transparent, or I should say shades of gray down. And then we've actually got some specifically transparent stuff in here. I'm going to copy this whole thing, and I'm going to go back to this test.rgb thing in Photoshop. I'm going to make a layer from the background so that I can work with it. And then I'm going to add a mask to it. And in that mask, I'm just going to go in and edit the mask. And I want to make everything black. That would be, if we go back to our main view, now everything's transparent here, right? So I'm going to go back in and edit the mask, and I'm going to paste in that white alpha layer. And then I'm going to zoom into it, just so that I can get things positioned correctly. The nice thing about this is it's very blocky. These are like 16 by 16 pixels. And we can just drag this around and put it up at the upper left-hand corner, which is exactly where our textures start. And when we go back to the main layer, you'll see that now we've got our transparencies, right? So we can save this guy. Let's do a, I'm going to save for web and devices, which will get me access to PNG export. And as long as your program can do this, you're good. You just want it to be able to save transparencies. And I'm going to do save. And let's call this, I'm just going to overwrite the RGBA. There's no reason not to, because that texture doesn't seem to be doing as much good. So I'm just going to overwrite that. And then I'm going to delete it from here. It's going to cause us a problem, I think, but I can put it back. Just going to drag test2 to RGBA back in here. And then in our MC transparent thing that we did, I'm going to drag that into the albedo layer. And now I think that we're going to, actually we got to make one more change to it. We've got to come in here and say that that's alpha. And we got to do point. And then we're going to see what's happening here. It doesn't look like it worked, but I may have done something wrong. Let's, okay, haven't applied those import settings. I'm going to grab these three things and I'm going to drag our MC transparent onto it. And it didn't work. Well, now I've done this before and I don't know exactly why it's not working. So give me a sec to figure it out. Oh, yep, one more setting that I forgot to do. So on our MC transparent material, we also have to choose rendering mode from opaque to, does cutout work? Cutout does not work. We want transparent. There we go. We're going to get an appropriate level of transparency. Now, one thing I have noticed, though, is that we get this little sort of shadowy edge here, and I'm not entirely sure how to get rid of that. What happens? Let me see if I can figure out how to get rid of that real quick before you go. Oh, here we go. Specular highlights and reflections. Oh, okay, turning off reflections doesn't seem to work. What happens if we make this black? And that colors the entire thing. That's a tint. Yeah, so I don't have a solution for you on this. This is a problem that I haven't yet been able to get rid of. But as long as you're not trying to use it for real scenery, if you just want it to be a stand-in, it's okay. I think there probably is a way to fix this, and I will do some research and see if I can figure it out. Or maybe you guys know exactly why it is doing that. I can't really say for sure. So anyway, now we have an item here. We can get rid of some stuff. Let's see, our MC solid. Let's just make this be the test2 to RGBA, and then that way I can delete some of these things. We don't need the alpha. Can get rid of those guys. So now we got kind of cleaned up over here. And what we can do, I'm going to drag all of this stuff into a folder just so it's out of the way. So we've got our materials, our model, those two files. I'm going to drag them into the import folder. I'm going to get rid of this test2 thing here. And we should be good. Yeah, we're good. So now what we can do is, let's call this our tile, maybe, terrain tile. And drag that in as a prefab. We can delete it from our scene, and now we can just drag it in anytime we want, and we can drag it around in the scene. If you hold down Control, you can move things smoothly, so we could duplicate it, for instance, and have a lot of them. You might have to mess with the scaling. Right now I think it's coming in at a 1-to-1 scale, but if you've got some other thing that you want to do, it might not be the right scale for you, so you may have to mess around with that. But now we have a little prefab. But I'll show you one potential problem for this. So let's just grab a, we're just going to grab a game object. We're going to grab a capsule. And I'm going to drag that up. Let's reset its position. It's coming in over here. That's fine. But there's our guy, right? So these guys aren't sitting down at 0. So let's make this guy sit down at 0. We got to give him a 1. So yeah, they're one level up. So what we can do is we can just drag them down by 1. And now they're kind of at the ground level. But this guy here, so if we take, he's got a capsule collider on him. If we put a physics rigid body on him, and we tell it to use gravity, which it is doing. When we press play, he's just going to fall through the surface there because there are no colliders on here at all. So let's look at how we might fix that. Well, first of all, I'm going to get rid of this one. And then I'm just going to create an empty game object and reset its position. Make sure it's at the center. I'm going to drop the tile on it. And I'm going to go ahead and just set this to, whoops, no, I still want that to be -1. But I'm going to set that to 0. There we go. So there we go. You can, if you wanted this thing to be centered, you could certainly do it. I mean, you can change its positioning as needed to get it in the center of your screen. So let's say we wanted this building to be in the center. Oops, I grabbed the whole game object, not the tile. Actually, I did that before, didn't I? Let's set that back to 0. The idea behind putting it in a game object is that this thing can be at 0, 0, 0, but the tile itself can get moved. So that's my goal here, is just, let's just put this, you know, at the center of the world like. And then now our game object is at 0, 0, 0. This thing has an offset. If you wanted to scale it too, if you wanted to make it, you know, bigger, then you would do that on this object as well. And then this thing is still at 1, 1, 1. But we can leave it at 1. So let's go about putting some, move our game object over here. Let's go about putting a collider on this guy, right? So all we have to do is come in here to this game object. I'll call it the tile prefab. We'll make a prefab out of it. We can go in here and we can add some components. So for instance, we could add a physics component, a box collider to it. And then if we go to, let me shorten this up a little bit. If we go to Edit Collider, here it is over here. We can go into Ortho mode and actually scoot this collider around to where we need it to be to represent the grass. So let's just do that. Let's just set it up for the whole thing. And you can probably get some clues about how big something wants to be over here. Looks like this wants to be -6.5 maybe. So that's going to be even, and it looks like this wants to be about 16, and this looks like it wants to be about -0.5. So now we've got some nice even numbers in there. If we go back out of ortho mode, I'm going to have to do this so I can see. We've only done it one direction though, right? So we could probably make some guesses about how big it needs to be, but that's fine. Let's don't. Let's actually do it by positioning here. So I'm going to drag that over to there. And I'm going to grab this side and drag it over to here. And that looks like about 15. That looks like about a -2. And oh, no, it is not a -2. Which way you gotta go? Oh, I see. 1.75. Yeah, I think we've got it there. So now, if we go back to, let's get out of ortho mode. And if we go back over here and take a look at our guy, we've got a collider on the terrain now. If we turn it on and play, what did I do? I moved my camera? I guess I moved my camera. There we go. Let's just do it that way. Press play. And we can see our guy is actually sitting there on the surface all nicely. If we were to, let's see, let's split screen here so that we can see both. If we grab this guy and drag him up, he falls, he lands on the surface, no problem. Now he can go through the building, and we could put a collider on that building. You can do all kinds of stuff with colliders, but basically you want to get the ground done. Oops, he fell over. Oops, sorry about that, little capsule dude. Anyway, that's the end of the story. If you guys have any questions or want to see any additional stuff, I'll see what I can do about this transparency thing. I haven't been able to solve this yet, so I'm not entirely sure why. It's probably some simple setting that I'm just not doing. But if any of you guys have an idea about why that might be, feel free to let me know. Or if you have any questions, let me know too. And we'll come back to this series when I have something else that I think you guys might be interested in seeing. All right, see you soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye.